Falcons training camp officially broke ground today, so we're going to recap everything we learned after day one from Flowery Branch. We have some depth charts to look over, some highlights to talk about, and of course, Desmond Ritter watch on today's show. But before we get to it, Rolly's a funny guy. He knows that I hate this. Falcons football is not back until week 1 against the Panthers, but if you are one of the simple-minded folks that believe football is back when training camp gets underway, because it's not back. Training camp and preseason is the biggest blue balling in all of sports. Then you can go ahead and like the video. But I'm not liking the video today because football is not back until week 1. Okay, now let's get into it with a quick tweet from Josh Kendall over at The Athletic saying, Calais Campbell placed in non-football injury list this afternoon, but it's not believed to be a serious issue. Falcons also waived cornerback Caleb Huntley and confirmed signing of Michael Pruitt. Caleb Huntley got injured last season. My guess is he's not close to 100%, and the Falcons are just going to move on. As for Calais Campbell, I don't have an explanation as to why he's on the non-football injury list. What I can offer you is a calendar, and it's July, and I'm not going to get overworked or too concerned over July news stories from training camp. But we do have some good injury news coming in from Kyle Pitts, because he was spotted at training camp today wearing a knee brace, practicing not quite 100% just yet. In fact, there's really no official timetable as to when he's going to be 100% ready to roll, meaning if the Falcons had a game tomorrow, I'm not confident that Kyle Pitts will be ready to play in it. But good news for Atlanta, they don't play until September. Now, he's coming off that right MCL injury last November against the Bears, and the Falcons have been cautious about it. Arthur Smith talked about that in the spring, and here we are now at the end of July, and Atlanta knows Kyle Pitts is a very special player, and they're not going to push anything right now. But I will say he does need to get on the field sooner rather than later because, like we talked about in previous episodes, what was a big issue for Kyle Pitts and Marcus Mariota last year? They never got any sort of chemistry down. Pitts and Ritter need to get chemistry down right now in the summer, so this is the time to do it. All right, more on Kyle Pitts coming in from Sarah K. Spencer. Kyle Pitts on practice today / coming back from his knee injury. I felt pretty good. It was fun being back out there with the guys. The fellowship is always good being out here having fun playing ball. So it's great to see Kyle Pitts back on the field. That's a step in the right direction. Hopefully we can see him get back to 100% in the near future. Now, maybe the biggest news story that came out of Flowery Branch today was Arthur Smith, who's notably missing a chin, does have a new mustache, though. So Arthur Smith said, it's a lifestyle change. It's not for everybody. I can't grow a mustache. In fact, I've got like pubes on my face right now. It's not looking good for me. But Arthur Smith, shout out to you. You can rock the mustache. Big fan of it. He looks like a sheriff. You know what he looks like? The cop in Stranger Things. Do you remember his name? Hopper. Yes, thank you. I'm getting Hopper vibes. He's going to be Hopper for Halloween. How about that? More from Kendall, okay? Eddie Goldman checked in Atlanta on Tuesday, but did not practice Wednesday. He's got some personal things he's dealing with, so we'll just have to take it day by day with Eddie, Arthur Smith said. I'm going to be honest. I know that players have personal lives, and that's not good. But that's a factor. But what's not good is when you only play one season in the last 3 years and you start training camp off by not being at training camp, they might decide to move on. Now, I have no idea what the personal issue is, and maybe it's only going to take a day or two, but Eddie Goldman's in a spot where he needs to kind of kiss ass a little bit. And for Goldman, every single rep counts. He needs to be on the field. He needs to show the coaches that he has shaked the cobwebs off. And when you only play 2 years ago for the first time in the last 3 years, yeah, you definitely have some rust you need to wear off, and you need all the training camp you can get. More takeaways from day one. Matt Hennessy was spotted at the first-team offensive line at left guard. So I remember in April, we weren't worked up. We weren't concerned about Mr. Matthew Bergeron not starting at left guard. He's a rookie. It's only rookie minicamp, and then it's OTAs, and then it's mandatory minicamp. No harm, no foul. It's your first season. But here we are in July, and it's still only July. But Bergeron was someone Atlanta identified as a player they wanted to move up in the draft and land because they had first-year starting aspiration goals for him. And it's still very much in play to get there. But as of right now, we're not there. And if there's a game tomorrow, Bergeron ain't starting at left guard. And I remember I got roasted for some skepticism about moving up to get a tackle to play guard. But who do you guys think ends up starting at left guard? Bergeron or Hennessy? Give me the name down in the comments section below. I feel a little, ambitious continuing to put Bergeron at the starting depth chart position because ultimately I do believe when week 1 rolls around, he will be the starting left guard. I think he's got a month to prove it, and just because he's not starting with the first team offense for the first day of training camp doesn't mean you got to sound alarm bells, but you'd probably like to see him in an ideal world start off with the first team offense. So this will be a fun training camp battle to watch for. I know if you're an X's and O's geek like myself, it might seem like a little bit nitty-gritty starting left guard. Who cares? But you know what? I care because this team, their success is rooted through the ground. It's going to be on the ground with Bijan Robinson and the rest of this ground game. So they need 5 really good offensive linemen because they're not going to win football games by asking Desmond Ritter to throw for 400 yards. And so that means you need to have the best 5 guys up front for the Falcons. Before we get on to the rest of my training camp notes and whatnot, if you have not subscribed, consider going ahead and doing so. We're going to keep you guys informed all training camp long. We're trying to reach 13,000 subs, so a selfish goal of mine. If you have not subscribed, please go ahead and help us reach that number. More from day 1 at Flowery Branch. Troy Anderson and Caden Ellis were working as the starting inside linebackers. So Michael Walker not running with the first team offense. And Anderson, look at his neck right there. The guy just screams linebacker. He is an athletic freak. He's got incredible speed. He can run foot for foot with tight ends up the seam. He can go sideline to sideline. Very excited about what Troy Anderson can do in year 2 for the Falcons. The linebacker room, like we mentioned, it's going to be a rotation on the outside as we look at that for a moment. Bud Dupree, Lorenzo Carter, Arnold Ebiketie. I'm curious to see who ends up really emerging as the number 1 snap leader. I'd have to envision it'd be Lorenzo Carter. Bud Dupree seems like a guy who might want to take first and second downs off when it's clear and obvious run situations. But this will be a fun linebacker room in 2023. Moving on to the secondary now. Darren Hall was working with the 3s on day 1, so someone that's definitely a roster bubble guy, if you will. Not off to a fantastic start, at least in the eyes of the coaches, but you're going to see a lot of movement on the depth chart. They're going to give guys opportunities with the 1s, with the 2s, with the 3s, but off the bat, they've got Darren Hall working with the 3s, and your locks to make the roster include A.J. Terrell, Jeff Okudah, Mike Hughes, and Clark Phillips. That's 4 out of what I believe are going to be 6 corners to make this roster. So then it's up to Alford and Armstrong and Hall and Flowers to take the other 2 spots. So this will be another training camp battle to keep an eye on. Now, maybe one of the reasons why you clicked on to today's video, Screaming Petey, what's going on with Bijan Robinson? Bijan Robinson's kicking ass and taking names. He is a bona fide superstar. I'm telling you right now, buy your stock. It might not even be that great of a stock price to get on, but it's only going to go to the moon. We are passing Doge. Doge is going to be a blimp on our radar once Bijan Robinson lands in another planet. We had UFO sightings, I believe, they're talking about it in D.C. right now. There's going to be Bijan Robinson sightings wherever the UFOs came from. That's how far he's going to the moon. I kind of saved the bad news for the end. Maybe I'm a coward for doing this. Desmond Ritter got picked off by Jalen Hawkins. Quarterbacks are going to throw interceptions. Good news, spin zone. It means he's aggressive, right? He's going to push the ball down the field. Bad news, I'd rather him not get picked off when there's non-padded practices. And it's kind of like walkthroughs, sort of, 7-on-7, 11-on-11s. Somewhat glorified flag football, benefiting the offense. But, hey, on the upside, come up for Jalen Hawkins because this safety room, it's got some really good names in it, right? Jesse Bates comes over from Cincinnati. Richie Grant is not a household name league-wide, but I think, even Falcons fans are starting to catch on to what Richie Grant can be for Atlanta this year. Helms was their 7th-round pick out of Alabama this past draft. He's going to be a fun name to watch for. I think him, Hawkins, and the 2 starters make the 53-man roster. But Desmond Ritter, ups and downs, right? Kevin Knight, who does a great job of following the team, tweeted out Desmond Ritter was up and down on day one. I saw some nice, crisp, short, and intermediate passes. Also saw a few overthrows, and then, of course, the 2 interceptions. It's literally the first day for a lot of these vets on the field with Ritter this offseason. Relax. And I'm going to echo what Kevin is saying. And I've definitely been one of the more harsher critics, if you will, of just buying in on the Desmond Ritter hype. But it's July. RELAX. We cannot overreact after day one of training camp. We can actually have some fair reactions and a fair controversy or discussion when it's like day 20 of training camp, right? And there's 2 preseason games in the book or something like that. But we're not having this conversation after day 1. Take it from me, someone that's not drinking the Desmond Ritter Kool-Aid and getting drunk off of it. Even I know, don't overreact after day 1 of camp. Let's slow things down and let's let guys get comfortable and get back into the swing of things. But be honest, are you concerned about Desmond Ritter? Yes or no? Wear your hearts on your sleeve. Give me your honest opinions in the comment section below. We'll be very interested to see where everyone stands on this. And as always, to wrap up the show, we've got a fun draft. Now, unfortunately, Rolly is off producing some other content here at Chat Sports. It was a busy day within our walls. So lucky for us, Sam Brown offered to fill in and be the voice for Rolly's draft picks. We got a fun draft, by the way. I took the lead, won the push after the Will Ferrell draft on the last episode. So shout out to everyone who knows Will Ferrell and voted for me. But today's draft is a fun one. It is players without injury. So if you could restart NFL players' careers, but injuries are off, who would you pick? So I had the 1-1, and I went with Bo Jackson. Go look it up. You might not realize how little football Bo Jackson played. I think he only played 4 years because of that hip injury. So this, to me, seems like the obvious 1-1. And filling in for Rolly, Sam Brown.
Yeah, an interesting pick here to kick things off for Rolly. He went Bob Sanders at number 2. And to be quite frank, I'm looking at Bob Sanders' Pro Football Reference page right now just to get a better glimpse of what he had done over the course of his career. I don't get this pick by Rolly.
I didn't understand it. He was a good safety. He missed a lot of time out of Iowa, if I recall. But, yeah, at the 1-2.
Defensive Player of the Year in 2007. 97 tackles, 6 TFLs, 3.5 sacks, 6 PBUs, 2 INTs.
Maybe he was like Troy Polamalu before Troy Polamalu came to the scene. You know what I mean? Like, that's why he wants to restart.
It was his 4th season, so maybe he was just on that come-up. Looks like that serious injury happened the following year. Forgive my box score hunting.
I don't blame you. My second selection, I'm a little mad. I feel like I went early on this one, but Robert Griffin III. The guy did win NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. The Washington franchise completely ruined him, tossing him out there with half an ACL and be like, it's fine, you'll be good. But RG3 was electric in college, won the Heisman. It would have been fun to see what RG3 could have been if he stayed healthy because he was a good passer too.
Yeah, Jordan Reed, number 4. Am I crazy for thinking that falls like right along the logic? Like I think this is a little too early compared to some of the names on the back end here that we'll get into.
Yes, agreed. Jordan Reed was an awesome tight end.
Jordan Reed had some very nice years.
Just never played a full season.
Just never got around. Showed flashes right at the very end with San Francisco, and we're like, oh, maybe he'll get his career back on track a little bit. Unfortunately, that never came to be.
Yep. For my third selection, deep cut here, Gale Sayers for the Chicago Bears. This is a good pick. I know none of us watching, or at least most of us watching, maybe not have watched his game tape. I mean, he was well before my time. But go look at Gale Sayers' stats. The guy scored 6 touchdowns in one game. He was awesome in punt returns, kick returns, behind the quarterback, in the receiving department. Gale Sayers was awesome. Unfortunately, had his career cut short because knee injuries back then were a death sentence.
Yeah, Cam Newton here at number 6. I like this pick a little more. If I had like flip-flop 4 and 6, Jordan Reed and Cam Newton, I'd probably feel a little bit better about this draft. But you always wonder what could have happened, following those MVP years. And I'm a Denver Broncos fan, so I can't say I feel too bad because they beat the Carolina Panthers in the Super Bowl back in 2015-16, but there's no doubt that there have been very few players in the NFL like Cameron Newton.
Yeah, my fourth selection to round it out, I'm going to go with Gronk. I know this one might be surprising because he had a great career, but it could have been, an all-time NFL career without the injuries. The guy still was Gronk, 10,000 yards, 4 Super Bowls. I'm going to guess he had around 80 touchdowns or so. Sam, you want to fact check me? I'm going to guess 80 touchdowns. I mean, Gronk, unfortunately, did miss a lot of time with
Ended his career with 92.
92. See, I was 12 short
But
still.
38 in his first 3 seasons,
Yeah,
which
I
is
mean,
just insane.
If Gronk didn't deal with like the elbow injury, remember he had that arm cast, he had the knee injury, he had a back injury, he had so many injuries, he would have gone down as like an undoubted, not just greatest tight end of all time, but one of the greatest players of all time. And now we still think of him as a great tight end, but more of like a goofball, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you had stuck around maybe 5 more years or something like that, I think he's right in the thick of that conversation. He's probably the most dominant player at the position up until Kelsey.
Yeah, and I think if he never gets hurt,
no one stopped him.
Right, and if he plays every game kind of like Kelsey does, there's no conversation. And right now there is a conversation, Gronk or Kelsey.
Yeah. Last pick here, Andrew Luck. Again, I like this pick. I wish he had gone a little bit earlier because I don't think there's any doubt that Andrew Luck was on a pretty good trajectory. Led the league in touchdowns his 3rd year with 40. And unfortunately, that shoulder neck thing just you can never get over it. And in all honesty, I think it's a good opportunity to show some respect for players that that are able to prioritize the rest of their lives and know when to walk away from the game, as opposed to the majority of players who are kind of forced out of the game because they can't get a job.
It's a good selection. I like it. So let us know who had the better draft, PD or Roley. Put whichever name you liked more in the comment section. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll sign off. We'll see you guys later.